Hey there friends, Dave Paulides, CanAm Missing Project, copyrighted edition for our video channel, and it is a special day. Huck's got her little buff on, Christmas buff. She had a bath yesterday. She's smelling all pretty, huh? Oh yeah, I know. What's that on Daddy's head? Woohoo! Yeah. Okay, and this is a Christmas Day special. Yeah, even Huck says so. A lot of you said, Dave, come on. You got to do the Christmas Day thing. I said, well, I will do it. Christmases to me have been the worst and the best. And I'm sure a lot of you have had this. The best family, uncles, aunts, cousins, big crowd, great meal. Everybody gets along, everyone exchanges presents. Best memories I could ever have for Christmas. And then the bad days are no different than yours. Missing specific loved ones. Maybe not spending it with any family or friends. I've known them both. And the loneliness factor is the worst. I guarantee it. We have to remember that life is a balancing act. And in the end, if we can say we were happy most of the time, that's pretty good. To be happy all the time would mean you don't appreciate what extreme happiness may be because you haven't experienced sadness. So to feel extraordinary pain, I've heard it explained that it's a gift because in turn, then you really do appreciate the great times. Now for me, I look back on this past year and I lost a couple of really good friends. I never knew that they were so far out there politically. It didn't matter to me for years. But then once the election got close, they started acting like I wasn't their friend, like I was their enemy, like, I don't know, it was horrible. And I saw a side to them I'd never seen. Maybe I was blinded to it. I miss one of them very, very much. And that makes me very sad. Friends are hard to find. They're harder to keep. Now, last couple days before Christmas. Oh, by the way, let's stop. What am I doing? Grab your hot cocoa, hot toddy. On a really cold winter night in Montana, a hot toddy for me. That does it. Cup of coffee if you like. I have some almond croissants in the other room. Yes, I did get some for Christmas. And I'm going to go out there and eat a few, forcing Huck to drool in front of me. But what I did the last few days is I picked out several Christmas stories. They all mean a lot to me because they remind me of times in my life. They're not sad. I think they're uplifting. And so I hope you find them the same way. This one's called The Christmas Spirit Strikes Again. I always dreamed of pulling off the surprise prank of a lifetime. You know, the kind you see on TV or laugh about late at night with friends. Well, thanks to a little determination, some luck, and generous helping of Christmas spirit, my dream became a reality. My family is Canadian. Yes, just like many of you out there. Although my sister moved down to Australia a few years ago to study speech pathology, she was graduating just before Christmas. But due to my own scholarly schedule back home, I wouldn't be able to make it down in time for her graduation. She was understandably disappointed, and I felt guilty that I wasn't able to be there for her on the most special of occasions. While I was talking to my supervisor the week before my sister's graduation, the conversation drifted towards Christmas plans. When I mentioned that I would be missing my sister's graduation by less than 48 hours, she commented, "Well, if you want to go, I have no problem with it, so go ahead." I couldn't believe my luck. I nearly jumped for joy. "Just make sure you get permission from the admin," she added. And my heart sank. The administration at my school was notorious for denying any sort of time off requests, and last-minute pleas would undoubtedly draw nothing but ire. I almost didn't bother asking because I knew it would be a waste of time, and I didn't feel like a thorough chastisement. Plus, I knew the answer was already no, but something in me decided to try, just in case. I've always said, if you can't try, if you don't try, you can't fail. But you also can't succeed. I knew the answer already, no, but sometimes in me decided to try just in case. Maybe it was the hope that the Christmas spirit would somehow permeate the administrative office this time of year. When I returned home to find the associate dean's reply in my inbox, I sealed myself up for a disappointment. I gritted my teeth, opened the email, and started to read and reread and reread, just to make sure I understood. Approval? I could actually go? I rubbed my eyes. There must be a mistake, but no, I was flabbergasted. There was no logical explanation. I couldn't believe my luck. The only explanation I could possibly come up with was the Christmas spirit had been lurking in the heart of my associate dean when she had read my request. Immediately, I called the airline. Miraculously, even during the busy Christmas schedule, I was able to change my ticket to arrive the day before my sister's graduation. With news this fantastic, I was bursting to tell my sister. But fingers on the dial, I paused. Wouldn't it be so much more fantastic if I could surprise her? I pictured myself just showing up, knocking on her door. What a heck of a shock that would be. I laughed gleefully to myself as I pictured her face when she opened the door and saw me. She loved pranks and practical jokes of all sorts. Pulling off a prank like this would certainly be an ultimate gift, and if I were successful, she'd probably be more excited about my unconventional arrival than even my attendance at her graduation. Slowly, the idea evolved in my mind. This guy thinks like me. For a surprise of this grand scale, I needed a much more dramatic arrival than just a doorbell ring. For me, Christmas surprises are epitomized by presents, or at least the boxes. What if I could arrive in a box? I started to plot. Then brilliance struck. Getting delivered in a box to my sister's house by couriers. I knew if I could pull this off, my presence at her graduation and my grand arrival would be the best Christmas present ever, if I could ever give my sister. No one appreciates a prank like a prankster. Although I was leaving in less than 72 hours, I frantically jumped on my phone in Halifax and computer in Nova Scotia, and I started Googling courier companies. One of the first I came across, and the only one willing to go along with my Christmas surprise, was Couriers Please. At first, the branch manager said no, pointing out that Christmas was their busiest season, and he couldn't spare a courier for that unorthodox request. But he suddenly and inexplicably warmed up the idea and actually volunteered to dress up and deliver me himself. The Christmas spirit strikes again. Upon arrival in Australia, the manager met me in full uniform, but that wasn't all of it. He had brought one of his couriers, plus a Couriers Please van, along for the ride as well. He even had a reinforced box prepared for me that day, already tested at the office. I thought it would be easiest to walk up to the doorway and then jump out of the box while she rang the doorbell, but no. They insisted my sister might see me through the window, and they certainly didn't want to jeopardize my Christmas surprise. Instead, they parked a few hundred meters up the street, where they loaded me in the box and carried me all the way to my sister's, where they rang the doorbell and announced that they had a delivery for her. I couldn't see the look on my sister's face as she opened the door to couriers with a surprise delivery, but I could tell from her voice she was a little more perplexed. This soon morphed into utter disbelief and shock when the box was opened and she saw her older sister sitting inside smiling at her. Uh-oh, it was a sister. She was at a complete loss for words, and I'll never forget the look on her face as she opened those flaps on the box. It was such a gift to be able to attend my sister's graduation and to show her my love by giving her the most unique, unconventional Christmas gift present in the history of our family. It was a memory both she and I will cherish forever. It also served as a lesson for me. Never, ever underestimate the power of Christmas spirit. It can move hearts, minds, and yes, even people in boxes. I read that. I liked it. I don't know. I just liked it. It's like something I do. Sharing a legacy of love. The next story. When my mother died at the age of 84, my 4 sisters and I were heartbroken. How could we ever get over the loss of a warm and loving woman, a talented artist who enjoyed life in spite of its challenges and always doted on her husband, daughters, and grandchildren? For weeks after, my sisters and I would meet for dinner, laughing and crying over old memories. When it came time to sell my home that my mom loved, we spent many days in disbelief clearing out her belongings. I remember reading an Ann Landers column years earlier that discussed how many siblings fight bitterly over the possessions left by their deceased parents. So let me say something about that. My mom and dad were married for 40 years, until she died of cancer. And when she died, my dad told my sister and I, actually told my sister, that to take anything of my mom's, have anything you want, and that he wasn't going to be home that day. Well, my sister says she forgot to tell me. She went in and took all kinds of things. I heard about it maybe a week later, and I talked to my dad, and he said, "Yeah, what'd you take?" I said, "I didn't even hear about it." And then my sister apologized profusely. But family acts differently over a deceased person's possessions. It's very odd. To me, it means nothing. Except, I gotta say this, except with Ben. When we went back to cleaning out his apartment, there were a couple of things I wanted that I didn't get. My ex-wife got them. And she said she would share those with me and never did. But that's a story for another day. On with the story. How lucky we are that this will never happen to us. Somehow, we easily and peacefully divided Mom's belongings, furniture, jewelry, and household items among ourselves and a few charities. Although I expected there might be a tug-of-war over her paintings, that never happened. Pretty good considering there were 5 daughters and 4 grandchildren, no conflicts, squabbles, or disputes at all. Until we discovered the old Nativity box in Mom's closet. I remember Mom telling the story of how she acquired the manger. An old friend who did carpentry work gave it to my mom and dad as a Christmas gift when they were first married. My sister, Eileen, however, remembers it differently. Mom told her she found the crochet in a garbage can belonging to Mrs. Bingham, the elderly lady who lived across the street from us. Unlike some dark and ornate versions of the story today, the manger was crafted from dark wood and completely unadorned, just a roof, a floor, and a railing surrounding it. Though peacefully crafted and beautiful, there was one flaw. One side of the double gate in front was lopsided. Mom filled it with 3 figurines to start: Mary, Joseph, and baby Jesus. For many years, she continued to add others: the wise men, shepherds, angels, and animals. As kids, we loved the annual rites of the Christmas season, especially taking the nativity set and decorations down from the attic and carefully putting them in place. When the sisters all married and grandchildren came along, they added new characters of their own to the table, including a set of 3 little pigs. After Mom's death, when the nativity set emerged, no one was prepared for the battle that would follow. My sister Joanne was the first to claim the manger, insisting it was the only one of Mom's possessions that she really wanted. Her wish was granted, but when my niece Mandy found out, she called from her apartment in California to voice her objection. She was clearly emotional as she repeated a decades-old promise made to her by my mom. Quote, Nanny promised me that I could have the nativity set when she was gone, she cried. The nativity set belongs to me. Joan felt strongly that as Mom's daughter, she had the first dibs. Neither she nor Mandy would budge. When the disagreement showed signs of becoming a full-blown family feud, no, not starving Steve Harvey, we realized something had to be done. Enter the family arbitrator, my sister Eileen, who somehow saw through the fog. But as Mandy's mother and Joanne's sister, could Eileen handle the dilemma fairly? Temporarily, she set aside the emotion of the dispute and thought logically. The nativity set was just a wooden table, not an irreplaceable masterpiece of art. The beauty was in the eye of the beholders, the perception of two people who coveted a simple item owned by someone they loved. Couldn't a copy be recreated? Of course. She would order the wood from the lumberyard and get someone to build a second manger. The following day, Eileen went to the center millwork and stood in line behind several contractors ordering lumber from a young man with a crew cut. He was wearing a tag and his name was Brett, written in green magic marker. When Eileen's turn came, she had to shout over the sound of buzzing saws. She pointed to the nativity set in her arms and told him the story, explaining that it was causing a major rift between her and Joanne and her daughter Mandy. Brett took the stable from her, held it up with one hand and laughed. They're fighting over this? Yes, Eileen explained. I know it seems crazy, but it was my mother's, and they both loved her very much. Is there any way you could measure and cut some wood so we could have a duplicate built? Brett said, leave it here. I'll see what I can do. Eileen left, hoping she could clear up a minor miracle. That's what it would take to satisfy two women in her life that were squabbling. A few days later, she received a phone call message saying that her order was ready. When Eileen arrived at the hardware store to pick up the wood, she couldn't believe what she saw. Two identical stables sitting side by side. Brett not only had cut and measured the wood, he had built a second manger. Quote, I know you wanted them to look the same, so I added a couple of dings and flaws to make it original. I hope that's okay. Sure enough, the new stable had the same lopsided front gate. Okay. Eileen said in tears, you have no idea what this will mean to my sister and my daughter. To the entire family, I don't care what this costs. Your work has saved the day. That'll be $3.75 for materials, Brett said. When Eileen insisted on paying him more money, he said, I didn't do it on company time. I built it at home, so I won't charge you for the labor. He pointed to the new major. I hope this helps your family have a merrier Christmas. Eileen left Brett a large tip with big hugs for thanks. When she got home and called Joanne and Mandy about her creative solution, they were very happy, extremely relieved that the problem was resolved. One phone call later, Joanne said Mandy had agreed that Joanne would take possession of the new stable as well as some of the old figurines, including Mary, Joseph, and the infant. Mandy would get to keep the original, just as Nanny promised. Like I said, families are odd about personal things. Now for me, I wouldn't want the duplicate manger. To me, when something is important to you, my loved one, and you keep it with you for years, it's like a part of your soul is in that item. You loved it. That's what I want. I want some of that love coming back from that thing. I want to feel you in that item. That's why possessions don't mean so much to me. Everyday possessions really don't mean much at all. Third story. A Christmas present delayed. I was 10 this summer. My dad helped me buy my first 10-speed bicycle from Father Allen. I put up $60 on my grass cutting and snow shoveling money, and my dad put up the other half. I would pay him back in installments over the next 6 months. Although it was the kind of bike you'd expect a priest to have. Dull, silver, slightly worn, no baseball cards in the spokes. It was my ticket to adulthood. I spent the summer and autumn riding as if to put Greg LeMond to shame. My sister Liz, a prisoner of her 5-speed and banana seat, never had a chance to keep up. We'd always been stuck with hand-me-downs from our older brothers and sisters, a few of whom had notoriously bad taste in bikes. Now, however, I was able to ride to every corner of town, sometimes even as far as the beach, in those heady days before one acquires a driver's license. A good bike is a special magic carpet. Just before the Christmas deadline to pay my dad back, we were hit with several snowstorms. This allowed me to shovel enough driveways to pay off my debt. I was now officially a bike owner. It was a feeling like no other. It's important to note that while my mom and dad were fantastic parents, they couldn't be trusted with the awesome responsibility of buying appropriate Christmas presents. They were too quick to pass off gloves, sneakers, and shirts as presents, and while we might say a prayer over the baby Jesus in the manger on our way to church, he seemed too busy at the time of year to leave a present under the tree. We outsourced our requests for the really good presents from Santa. For her family of 7 kids, my mom developed a system in which she decorated the outside of 7 large boxes with different types of wallpaper. We each had our own box that contained 6 or so presents. We'd close our eyes, reach in to grab one when it was our turn. This cut down the hours of wrapping and satisfied my dad's naval sense of order. The downside is we opened one present at a time so everyone could appreciate each other's gifts. It's exactly what my family did. It took hours. In hindsight, it was stupendous. We all made fun of each other. Oh, look at that. What are you going to do with it? Who gave you that? You know. Neither Liz nor I appreciated the system because we went last. After the obligatory oohs and ahs, each of us held up our present for family review, just like what we did. A process that averaged 5 minutes or so. This meant Liz and I had to wait about 45 minutes between each present, so patience was in short order. When one of us pulled out a belt or a package of underwear, we seized the entire time. My dad, a master showman, liked to keep a few Santa's better presents for the end. On that fateful Christmas morning, he gave me a used portable record player. I was ecstatic. I was finally untethered from the family stereo that we all fought over. Alas, my elation was short-lived after my dad called my sister to the kitchen. "We have one more gift to give you," he said as he opened the door that led to the garage. There on the steps stood a brand new 10-speed Schwinn. I didn't hear her screams of joy. All I could hear was sputtering engine of a lawnmower, the endless scraping of metal on a sidewalk. I endured far too many hours of indentured servitude for my used bike. That Santa could give Liz the sparkling machine less than a week later was a sign that he was losing touch. Could Mrs. Claus be putting something in his food? I slumped on the floor. My 10-speed chariot had turned into a pumpkin in the time it took my sister to hop on that gleaming leather seat. "Let's go for a ride, Rob," she sang, my dad holding the bike upright as she put her feet in the pedals. "Too snowy to ride," I muttered, pushing the record player further away from me. The symbolism seemed lost on my dad. I seethed for the rest of the day, then the rest of the week. My dad was not someone to whom we complained about presents. Not if we ever wanted to see another one anyway. Santa always seemed to lose interest after Christmas, rarely accepting returns or trade-ins. That left the baby Jesus, but he wasn't answering my prayers. I could tell because Liz's bike had yet to crumble into a pile of rusted flakes. After a few weeks of watching me pout, my dad finally pulled me aside. "Everything okay, son?" "It's not fair," I whined. "I worked so hard for my bike and it's not even new. Then Liz gets a brand new bike as soon as I make the final payment. She didn't have to do anything for it." My dad smiled. "She didn't have to do anything for it because it's not really for her," he said, and then left the room. What did he mean? I didn't want her bike. It had that girly bar and sloped down to the ground and a flowery white basket and handlebars. I could turn it in for a new set of action figures, I figured. but she'd been on it every day since Christmas. No way they'd let me take it back now. I eventually got over it, chalking it up to elf air, the naughty and nice list of the cumbersome. By spring, Liz and I were riding all over town together. Now that she could keep up, sure, I'd lose her on the doorsteps and the steep hills, but I always let her catch up when we went downhill. Initially, the youngest children in a large family form a bond out of necessity. My older siblings can be taxing, and there are only so many locked doors one can hide behind. Sometimes you need someone else in the foxhole with you. As we grew, Liz and I became true friends. We biked down to the swim at the local pool, then put in 7 miles to take the free town tennis lessons together. We planned secret parties when my parents went on trips and played a game of who can leave gas in the tank. When we finally got our driver's licenses, I relied on her to put names to faces when we were at parties. And she treated my best friends as her personal dating service. I know about that. My sister did that to me. We ended up at the same college and even graduated the same year. Still, I wasn't smart enough to figure out what my dad meant until years later. That brand new bike was not a gift for Liz. It was a gift for me. He'd given me the gift of my sister's company. The ability to stay together rather than drift apart. In the face of my ability to travel, that gave me my best friend. It's a gift I've treasured every day since. Yeah, as kids, sometimes we don't see the message when it's being delivered. Sometimes it takes years for it to finally set in. About a week ago, I was thinking, what's the one gift my mom and dad gave me for Christmas that I never forgot? That night, I came in and I read that bike story. I swear to you, on my life, the present was a blue Schwinn 10-speed. I had a cruddy bike for a long time. Bikes were super expensive back then, even for my folks, and I will always remember that. And let me tell you, my mom and dad really put forth the big effort at Christmas. My dad was a fireman. My mom stayed at home with us. He worked super hard. He had 2 jobs. On his days off, he learned to be a contractor and built swimming pools. Highly successful. But they went way out of their way to have us be that normal family, and it was my sister and I. And there was never a lack of anything in our lives. But if we wanted a car, you pay half, I'll pay half. That's the way it was. So I saved forever. I got the first car I ever owned is a 1966 Ford Falcon Ranchero. It could barely run. It was a rust bucket, but you know what? It was mine. And I spent hours and hours wet sanding that car, taking it down and getting a new paint job, new upholstery, 3 on the tree. Many of you won't remember that. But it was my car. But those lessons in life about if you pay for something, it means more to you. I don't care what anybody says. It does. You appreciate it more. You maintain it better. And I did with that car. But one of the things my mom and dad always agreed on was you have to work. And if you're going to school, you still have to work. You can work on weekends. You can work after school, unless you're doing sports. So I played baseball and I played basketball in high school. So that took like 2/3 of the year, but then I had to work the other part of the year. That was okay. That was okay. Giving me mad money to do what I wanted to do. The lessons my mom and dad taught me carried me through life. I'm very blessed that I was given my mom and dad. Well, how can I spend our Christmas with you? Try to make it interesting and fun. And know that you have a safe home here. I care about each one of you. And I'll put my hat back in the box so Huck can recognize me. And in the meantime, be nice. This time of the year, everybody needs a big dose of happiness, including Huck and me. Look at that. Look at her eyes. Just look straight up at you. It's amazing. Huck, be a good girl, okay? Say bye-bye. Paulides out.